6:03 on TSN 690. It's Game Points with Matthew Ross. We are here until 7 o'clock tonight. Still to come this hour, Matt Snyder of CBS Sports on his Tim Raines article and why he thinks he should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Looking forward to that. Also this hour, listen up, folks. Mo Khan's blow-up plan for the Montreal Alouettes. Who needs to leave? Who needs to come in? How's that all going to work in Mo's head? That's coming up in our final segment tonight around 6:45. Update in the women's basketball game. Canada versus Spain. Both teams 3-1. Both teams qualified for the quarterfinal, but this is a good seeding game. Canada was down by 12 moments ago. It is now 49-43 in favor of Spain, late stages of the third quarter. And in fact, a former guest of this show, Tamara Tatham, just put one in. It's 49-45 with 30 seconds left in the third quarter. So Canada hanging tough right now versus Spain. Speaking of hanging tough, that was a terrible segue. He is the host of Ringside Report Radio late nights Friday here on TSN 690. Also of Wrestling Uncensored late nights on Saturday. Dave Simon MMA is the Twitter address, and I actually didn't tweet that he was going to be on this segment, so he's giving me the stink eye. It is Dave Simon.
I didn't give you a stink eye. Did I give you a stink eye?
A little bit.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, a little bit.
How's
it going, my friend? You're doing the stand-up routine, Ted Teven style. I like it.
Yeah, well, it's a packed house here. You got Dave in here. You got Mo, and
Mo's
of course,
back, yeah.
the terribly lovely Jimmy G over there.
Yeah.
That guy.
All right.
Jimmy.
Dave, UFC 202.
That's right.
Coming up.
It's fight week.
Now, how long has it been since Mr. McGregor has fought?
It's been since the last time he fought Nate Diaz, so I guess March of this year.
Yeah. Could there be a more anticipated rematch in the last several years of UFC?
There have been some anticipated rematches in the UFC, but this one is pretty huge. I don't think that there's going to be a rematch in the past couple of years that you can point to that will sell more pay-per-views than the one that's coming up here. I think Conor and Nate are going to do huge pay-per-view numbers. One of the main reasons is because Conor McGregor is just such a big star. Everybody knows him. He's only been in the UFC for even you, 6 or 7 fights. It's been a couple years of Mystic Mac, and all of a sudden he's
Mystic Mac. I like that.
One of his nicknames. He's this gigantic star, and he's selling all sorts of pay-per-views. And Conor McGregor has found his foe in Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is a huge star in mixed martial arts, and now other people are starting to find out about him. He was on Conan O'Brien. He was on Jimmy Kimmel. People are starting to know the man from Stockton, California, Nate Diaz, a guy that's been in the UFC for 10 years.
Long time, yeah.
Who is a living, breathing mixed martial arts legend, and now they get to fight again. It's a perfect fight. Nate is a big draw. Conor is a huge draw. And now they're going to sell a lot of pay-per-views come this Saturday night in Vegas.
Last week you were on the show and we were talking about some of the comments he had made. We played some of those. Dave, I understand you brought a clip.
Yeah, sure. We have more. I mean, it's not just Nate Diaz that Conor McGregor's beefing with, right? He was talking about Rafael dos Anjos because back in March, Conor was not supposed to fight Nate Diaz. He was supposed to fight for the lightweight championship of the world against a man named Rafael dos Anjos. Now, Dos Anjos had to pull out of that fight 11 days out. Nate Diaz stepped in, and we know what happened after that. Nate beat Conor in the second round with a rear naked choke. Conor's talking about Rafael dos Anjos, saying, well, I should be a two-weight world champion right now, this guy. And Conor is not only talking about Rafael dos Anjos, he's talking about any pro wrestler he can. So he's really
setting up his second career, essentially.
Yeah, he's setting up all sorts of different fights. He's setting up different feuds, not only with Nate Diaz. He's talking about everybody right now, and I wonder what that means for his mindset actually going into that Nate Diaz fight. But Jimmy G, you have the clip that I sent you here. Let's play the Conor McGregor talking about the rest of the WWE. This better be the right clip, Jimmy.
As far as talking about gimmicks, this is the real thing over here. I think these WWE guys think this is... They're not right in the head, some of them. I mean, the new age are dweebs. Let's be honest here, they're absolute dweebs. But the old school guys are legends. You know, I mean, Ric Flair was a legend. The McMahons, of course, Dons. But I just said it as it is. The dweebs. I mean, what's the main guy? John Cena. He's running around. He's 40. Yeah, he's 40 years of age. He's running around in a luminous orange T-shirt and a headband, talking about nobody can see him. We can see him right there. He's a big fat 40-year-old failed Mr. Olympian. You know what I mean? They're dweebs, those guys. But I don't know what to say to Ric Flair. This ain't no gimmick. This is the real. I've got to get in and fight a man for real, with no script, with no nothing. So he was talking about challenging, bringing some other wrestler guys over to challenge me. I was saying, come bring it then, this is the real over here. If you want to come over, we can fight, no problem. And then a few of them were talking about the street and all. If they want to do that, come at me and see what happens. But like I said, no disrespect to the dons of the game, the McMahons. I mean, Vinnie Mac's a fucking legend. I mean, they wrote Vinnie off a few years ago when he dropped from the billions, and then he rose back up, and now he's back in the billionaire club. And what he's been able to do with that bunch of dweebs he has over there at the moment has been phenomenal, and I respect him for that. And then of course the OGs of the game, you know, the Rock, Stone Cold, they're all cool motherfuckers. But even Ric Flair's a cool but like I'm saying, look, I'm just speaking the truth. That new age of those guys are absolute dweebs, and they just seem messed up in the head. I don't know what it is when I listen to them talk, when I listen to them carry themselves. They just don't seem right in the head.
Dweebs. He calls them dweebs. The whole WWE roster, dweebs.
Wow.
So he's got some words for pretty much everybody in pro wrestling. Of course, last week he said some things about pro wrestlers, and then he tweeted some things, and then the whole wrestling community, a lot of pro wrestlers, went back at Conor, including the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Cena didn't really say much, but Conor decided to take some shots there, pretty much saying what everybody says about Cena.
But you notice he's very smart, complimenting guys that sign the checks, and so you never know. But Dave...
Yeah, well, he's 145 pounds, don't forget. Well, he weighs 100. He'll weigh 170 come fight night, or maybe 175 at the very most, but he's a 145-pound champion. A guy like that next to the guys in WWE is not going to look so huge, so I don't think he's going to have a pro wrestling career, but an appearance at WrestleMania would sure be fun.
It could happen. We saw what happened with Ronda Rousey last year.
Well, yeah, it was a couple years ago. That would be really cool to see something like Conor McGregor, a huge pay-per-view draw. You know, Vince McMahon is looking at him and saying, we could make some money with him. People would be interested in the WWE product if we brought in Conor McGregor. And the UFC, they're making a lot of money off Conor. Whether he wins or loses, apparently he's supposed to fight Jose Aldo next for that 145-pound title, but Conor doesn't seem too interested in doing that.
Dave Simon joining us here on Game Points, talking some MMA. Dave, you mentioned 145, going up to 170, going back to one. I mean, that's 25 pounds. That's a lot of weight, isn't it, Dave?
There you go.
That's why would someone of his stature, right, who's a draw, regardless of where he's fighting, why would he want to go up and down by 25 pounds?
Well, he's the champion at 145 pounds.
Right.
He is not going to compete among the best welterweights in the world, which is 170 pounds. He's not going to compete with those guys. He can't. He's too small. He's fighting at 170 because Nate Diaz couldn't make 155 last time, and Conor wanted the same rules this time. So both of these guys really, if they were to fight at their optimal weight division, would be 155 pounds. It's just a strange kind of extra rule that they're going to be fighting at 170 here. So Conor, I think it's possible for him to drop back down to 145. It's going to be very difficult. He wanted to fight Rafael dos Anjos and become a two-weight champion because I think 155 pounds would be a lot easier for him to do. So the UFC may want to see him defend that featherweight title against Jose Aldo, but I don't know if Conor wants to do it. I don't know if his body can do it at this point, especially preparing to fight at an optimal level at 170 pounds. That will really do something, and it may be irreversible to the point where he's not able to get back down to 145. So I'm skeptical that he'll fight at featherweight ever again.
Dave Simon joining us here on Game Points, talking some UFC. Dave, what else is on the card of great interest to you for UFC 202?
Well, you've got a nice light heavyweight fight here between Anthony Rumble Johnson and Glover Teixeira. Two guys that have fought for world championships before. Two are the top light heavyweights in the world. And a victory here could mean a fight with Daniel Cormier. And this is a light heavyweight division that's kind of in a weird spot. DC is the champion, but John Jones is not around. And we don't know when John Jones is going to come back. We're still waiting for him to have his day in court with the Nevada State Athletic Commission. But, you know, there's still that John Jones shadow looming over the light heavyweight division. This is a big fight, but I think it would be bigger if we knew where Jones was going to be and what the future of the light heavyweight title was going to be. Because right now, with Daniel Cormier, hey, if Anthony Johnson wins, it sets up a rematch between those two, a fight that we just saw very recently. It's not really intriguing for the fans. If Glover Teixeira wins, it's still not a huge matchup. So the UFC really struggling right now to find big-time draws, big-time marquee fights at 205 pounds, which at one time with the Chuck Liddells and the Coutures and Shoguns and all these guys that they had, Lyoto Machida, this was the division in the sport, and now we're at a point where not so much.
Dave, any Canadian content on this latest card?
Yes, Randa Marcos will be fighting, and Randa actually joined us on Friday night here on Ringside Report Radio.
Which is available
TSN.
on
RingsideReport.net.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah. So Randa will be fighting. She's from Ontario. She's done a lot of training here in Montreal, though, at the TriStar Gym. She's going to be fighting on the TSN prelim card. And I think that's pretty much it for Canadian content. I'm looking up and down this one.
The prelim card is on what? TSN? Well, one of the TSNs, right?
One of them, probably...
Okay. 7 o'clock?
5, 3, who knows? Yeah.
7 o'clock next Saturday.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock next Saturday.
8 o'clock is when the prelims will start, and then at 10 o'clock pay-per-view time, as always, for UFC 202. Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor main event. As I mentioned, Anthony Johnson, Glover Teixeira, Rick Story, Donald Cerrone are fighting on that pay-per-view as well. But really, it's the Conor and Nate show, and that's going to be a great fight.
He is Dave Simon, host of Ringside Report Radio, host of Wrestling Uncensored, and just to humor Jimmy, you want to throw a SummerSlam-related thought in there, Dave, before you go?
Oh, what do you want to know about SummerSlam?
Jimmy,
Jimmy,
you
what
wanted
do you
to
want
talk
to know about
SummerSlam, Jimmy. You
SummerSlam?
wanted a wrestling thought.
No, we have the combat expert here. Combat expert, SummerSlam, and UFC 202.
So what do you want to know?
What
do you want to know?
You're stalling, Jimmy. That's
it's
not
the
that's
biggest
not a
event
question.
of the summer. SummerSlam.
All right, Jim. Fine.
I'm here
Dave,
to find
what's
out,
what's the match at SummerSlam you're looking
champion?
forward to the most?
A lot of people are looking forward to Randy Orton versus Brock Lesnar the most, but I'm not a big Orton fan. I want to see Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins for the new WWE Universal Championship, which is the new world title that they have on Monday Night Raw. And the winner of that match is going to be the Raw champion, which really is the most important guy in the wrestling business if you're the top guy on Raw.
Kind of devalues the old WWE champ, but anyway.
Yeah, well, who cares? It's Dean Ambrose, and he's on SmackDown, and Dean Ambrose is terrible, so I don't mind not seeing Dean Ambrose as WWE champ. So hopefully Finn Balor is your new champ come next Monday night.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
Dave Simon MMA, by the way, on Twitter as well. It is Game Points here on TSN 690. We're here till 7 o'clock tonight. Don't forget, just after 8 o'clock tonight, we'll have live coverage of the men's 100-meter semifinals, including the Canadian Andre DeGrasse, as well as the legend Usain Bolt of Jamaica. On the other side, a little NFL talk. Dave Trentadue has the latest storylines from around NFL preseason. That's right, preseason has begun. We'll talk about that next